Okay, so I just wanted to work through some ideas here that I have for custom entry animations. Elementor allows you to specify animations. I've just grabbed my code over here. So I've actually got a class here where I'm adding some entry animations. I'm not going to go into that just here. Um, the all the top ones are pretty straightforward. These ones down here, the character animations, are the ones I want to talk about. And I've worked out a way to do this, but I've also put in a feature request to Elementor, and I'm hoping someone from Elementor might actually take a look at this video to see what I'm talking about. Where what we want to do is when we add the entry animation to a heading widget, I want to be able to animate each character individually to get some cool animation effects rather than the whole widget at the same time. So show you what I mean here. So here's some basic entry animations for my custom animation. So I've got a reveal from bottom, and I've made a bunch of these for the ones I've created. And I'm using the fast, normal, and slow animation speed when I set the motion effects for the entry animation. So you can see here, these are all the same animation, just with fast, normal, and slow. That's the reveal from bottom. Here's reveal from top. Small fade from left. Small fade from right. Small fade up. Small fade down. When I mean small, I mean just a small distance. The built-in Elementor fade and slide in, I just think they too excessive. The distance they fade and slide over is too great, and it just looks a little clunky to me. So that's why I've got these small fades. Sorry, that's why I've got these small fade animations here. So then I've got a tilt in from top right. And these ones I've got the code from Animista .app or .io. I can't remember what it is, but it's Animista is the site that I got the actual keyframe animation from for these. So I've got a tilt in from top right, tilt in from top left, tilt in bottom right, tilt in bottom left, right, animate tilt. Do an F5 so you can see what that actually does. It kind of skews in. You can see look at the slow ones, probably easiest to see. It sort of skews in. And then the same with the tilt in from left. If you look at the slow one, you'll see how that animates from a tilt. So that's a tilt in. Slid in vertical. Again, these are all from Animista. Slid in horizontal. 5 on that, so you can see just horizontally animates in. Okay, now I think the next one is the ones I'm talking about with the characters. Slid in diagonal. Slid in diagonal 2, so these two, will just refresh those, so they're just opposite directions. Again, this is all from Animista. Okay, now this here is where it gets tricky. I'm going to talk about this part here. So if you look here, I'm animating each character from this heading individually. So I'm in this particular animation, I'm changing over the distance of the from the beginning to the end. I apply a different rotation, a different distance that it's traveling over to get that cool effect. There it is there. So it kind of less animated towards the end, more animated at the beginning. This one here, characters 2, that's kind of the beginning. So the beginning characters fading over a longer distance than the last characters. Here, I've messed up somehow. I know, there we go. That one there's the opposite. So over at the beginning, it's a shorter distance. At the end, it's a longer distance. Look at those two together. They're the opposites to each other. So if you had that side by side, it'd be look quite effective. Now this one here is just a zoom. So it starts off with this I've set the zoom at 10% from this end to whatever the count is. It just works out each step on the number of characters. And it sticks it goes to 400% at the end, and then it just animates back to 100%. That's animating each individual character. And I'm just going to bring up my Chrome DevTools so you can see what I'm doing here. So what I'm doing is I'm grabbing the text that we set in the heading, and I'm running some JavaScript which actually splits that text into spans with individual letters, and then using some calculations I set different parameters for each one, and then I use the standard entry animation CSS when that's added. So with Elementor, once the widget comes into the viewport, Elementor adds the animation classes. So in this case, I'm looking at the first one, so it's animation fast, adds my WPG element character effect 4, it adds those, and the animated, I should say. Sorry, it's not that class, it's this class here, WPG characters in 4 is the class that it's adding, which then animates that through to the endpoint. So yeah, so that's pretty much how it works. Now, the issue I've got where I've put in a request to Elementor for a feature is that when these classes get added to the widget, there's no event thrown. So I can't listen for an event to say when this widget is coming to the viewport and when it's had these classes added to it. Then I want to actually split all that into the spans, and then animate it. So what that means is I have to add another class, which I've created here in this example, is the Elementor, sorry, the WPG element character effect 4. So I have to add that to the widget, and then before these come into view, I have to find every one of those and split them, get them ready for when the animation classes are added. Not ideal because it's basically got to run every single split of every single one of these before the animation actually takes place, where it would be better if as soon as these effects, like for example the animated fast, the animated, where is it? Animated fast, animated, yeah. When Elementor adds those classes, it'd be great if they actually triggered a event which fired, it might say Elementor motion effect added, and then send the property as the property of the element that actually it was fired on. Then we can actually run the JavaScript to do this splitting into a span before it animates. That would be a much better way to do it, much cleaner way, but this is the only way I can do it for the moment. So if we go to my actual code, if I look at all these up here, all these small fades, whatever, they're just basic standard classes. So if I add this, for example, here, the animated fast, all I do in here is I go into my motion effects, and I add my entrance animation, and I set the duration. That's pretty much all I have to do with those. With the characters down here, because I want to animate each character, for each of these I need to add a class. In this case I've added WPG element character effect 1, so I can find these, and then I need to run some JavaScript which goes looking for all those. When the DOM content is loaded, it goes looking for all these, and then it runs a function split. So this is actually just calling on each of those. So I should reiterate here. So basically I'm taking the heading element, finding H1, H2, H3, H4, so I'm only doing this 1 through to 4s. If it finds those, for each of those, then calls my function to split the string into characters, which in this particular case is splitting it, and it's adding some rotation, style, and whatnot and a translate X, translate Y to this to each character. So each of these ends up as a span. If I look at let's look at the first one. Each of these ends up as, say, a span with transform of rotate 180 degrees, translate Y, sorry, minus 70 pixels, translate X, minus 70 pixels. So that is coming from, where are we? That is coming from calling this, which takes the original rotation of 180 degrees, the end rotation of minus 60, works out the steps based on how many characters we've got in the array. And then for each of these, it just maps everything in the array to create a span with those properties. So this is how I'm actually creating the individual characters. What would be great here is, instead of having to do this, if we could actually listen to a event here. So if I can do a add event listener and then listen for Elementor motion effect added or something like that, and then get the actual element, or instead of doing all this, I could just call the split here when that event fires and only apply it to that one widget, which would be a lot cleaner. So it'd be great if they could do that. I'm not sure if they will, but I'll put in a request. The only other part of this is all these up here, sorry, I should say, are already in I've got a plugin which I've created, which includes all these. The character ones I've just started working on, so those I'm just coding directly into this demo. So if I look at the site settings, and look in here, so here's my CSS. So for the character effect one, this one here, oh yes, I noted here, so because I'm running this on the DOM loaded effect, sorry, the DOM content loaded effect, so because I'm running this on the DOM content loaded event, what happens is that the initial display shows the actual text as it is, and once the event runs and then I can hide it, then it hides it. So what I've had to do here is, if I've added the class, in this case that to this widget, just setting the opacity to 0, and once it's got the animated class added to it, which so Elementor's gone, this is coming to view, it's added the animated class to it. I'm setting the opacity back to 1 because the animations start running at that point anyway. So that's just so I don't get a flash of this text before the animation. Then just got standard animation classes here, but so that's added by Elementor for the entry effect. I want to target the span, and I want to animate that using the keyframes here, which is basically setting the opacity to 0, through to opacity 1, and translating back to 0. Fact, typo in that. So yeah, so that's pretty much what I'm doing. Check the others here. Y, copy that, so that's wrong as well. This last one's just scaling. Okay, so update that. Back to the editor. Okay, here we go. So there's my basic animations for characters, individual characters at this stage. I'm probably going to add a few more once this is resolved. But that's pretty much what I'm doing. I want to have all these because a lot of people use these themes and premium themes, and a lot of those themes, really, they're only using them because of the fancy animations and some of the fancy layout stuff. And what I'm thinking is, if I can provide this as default features that I can use without having to go looking for themes and that, which I'm not going to do anyway. I always use Hello Elementor and try and keep it as simple as possible to minimize any issues. And if I can have these kinds of features and still use Hello Elementor, then that's a win-win. So that's pretty much what I'm doing. Now, if anyone's got any ideas or feedback on this, or if there's something I don't know that I'm missing here, please let me know. Thank you.